Hello, Kristen and Lydia.
Hey, Jim, how you doing?
How are
I'm
you?
doing well. How about the two of you?
Doing pretty well. Happy summer.
Thank you, and to you.
Summer. Very nice sentiment.
It's a beautiful day out. Hopefully everyone has gotten to enjoy this summer weather.
I watered my tomatoes for the past 15 minutes. That's my outdoor time for the day.
I'm gonna have to do that after this meeting.
Uh-huh.
How do you keep the animals from eating your tomatoes, Eric?
I got plastic fencing, black garden fence.
Okay.
Goes all the way up and around and over the top and keeps my grapes safe and my tomatoes safer.
Excellent.
Yeah.
We have a lot of rabbits this year, but they haven't bothered the tomatoes at all. So
We've got some predators in the valley, man. I was hiking down by the river, the creek, and I mean, it picked the carcass clean at some poor deer. You can see the whole structure of it. It's crazy, 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 crazy. Fur everywhere. Grizzly.
What did you say it was? Was it like a crows or something?
I says a predator. Oh no, it was something that attacked it. Yeah. People say there's coyotes down along the creek. I believe them. I've never seen them.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that does come back around every year. People say they see them.
Yeah, but there's proof there. It's something.
All right, well, I know that Aaron can't join us today. I didn't hear anything from Matt. Not sure if he's planning to join or not. Jim, is there anyone else who's on the Ingram Planning Commission now?
Not yet, Kirsten.
But Greg has officially, he's completed his move, right? So he's
He has, yes.
okay.
Greg moved or moved on?
He did. He moved to Fayette County.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, wow.
He's been working in Elizabeth, the borough of Elizabeth, for about a year.
Uh-huh.
So he's not much closer to his job, but he's just approaching it from a different direction. It's much easier to drive.
Makes total sense.
Hmm.
Cool, cool.
Well, we do have a new Crafton Planning Commissioner. Of course, we had a new one last month. So I don't think you've met Matt, actually. I think we have two new planning commissioners for Crafton since our last joint meeting, remembering correctly. So Matt Greiner was appointed, I think 2 meetings ago, and he's not on yet for today. And then Vince, this is his first planning commission meeting. So, hey, Vince.
Hello.
Welcome, Vince.
Thank you.
Well, I think we can go ahead and get started at 6:35. I'll share my screen. And we'll see if Matt's able to jump on at some point. You guys see that?
Yep.
Oh, yes.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and do our call to order. It's 6:35. For roll call, we have for Crafton, for this joint Crafton and Ingram Borough Planning Commission meeting, we have Kirsten Compitello. I am here.
Al Chef's here.
Lydia Herring's here.
Vince is here.
And Jim Marsilio is here from Ingram.
All right. Let me just check, since I'm sharing my screen, make sure that there is nobody in the waiting room. Does not look like it. So we have no citizens on the line. So we will go ahead and move on to the zoning project update. So both boroughs have now signed the contract that was finalized about 2 weeks ago. Took a little time to get it through both of the borough offices. So we have our consultant has an official contract. They did conduct a kickoff. They were here in town on June 21st. We had a kickoff meeting to kind of go through just project management and coordination and file sharing, et cetera. And then they did a site tour. It was incredibly hot that day, so it was a fairly short site tour. And then I know they did some driving tours in the morning before the kickoff, and they did some more driving tours afterwards. But they had told us that the kickoffs are usually pretty small. It's mostly coordination. So myself and Coletta both attended that. I'd shared it with a couple of other people, council and Doug, as well as Ingram. But in the end, it was only Coletta and myself who were able to attend. So we do have a little bit of follow-up for Ingram's knowledge. I know the consultant is going to be reaching out to them, and I'll follow up with Sam too. We had talked a little bit about just coordination, how we're going to be sharing information and how they should be doing their billing, for example. I told them we weren't going to answer that for them, for Ingram. But then they did their site tour. So they had their full team in town. So it was the 4 consultant companies that were partnering. So ZoneCo was here, and WSP had 2 people there. Blanking on that, Pashek had 2 people there, and Yard had 1 person there. So the whole team got to spend a little bit of time around Crafton and Ingram and get photos and get a sense for our communities. We did talk again about the steering committee. We haven't finalized that on either end, Crafton or Ingram, but we did decide between the 2 and with the consultants that we'll be doing 8 members per borough, because it's a joint plan. We want the ability to have some of the meetings be joint without the groups being enormous. So we thought if it's 8 members per borough, then that's a reasonable steering committee per borough, and then the potential of having up to 16 for a joint meeting is still manageable. They're anticipating having steering committee meetings every other month or so. So we don't have a date set for that yet, but for Crafton, we talked about having 2 to 3 members of council, 1 person from the planning commission, which would be in addition to myself. We could have 2 planning commissioners, but I would count for that and for council. So 1 additional planning commissioner, 1 zoning hearing board representative, and then the additional members would be business owners in Crafton. So 2 to 3, depending on how many. We've identified a few that Coletta is reaching out to, and depending on how many are interested, that will, determine whether there's 2 or 3 council members who take the remaining seats. Lydia, because of your long history with this and your, advocacy for this project for the past few years, I was suggesting, and I know I wrote this to you in an email, I would suggest that you be on the steering committee if you're amenable to that, and if the planning commission agrees that Lydia would be a good steering committee member.
I'm certainly willing, but if I've been carrying the baton, so I'm happy to pass it along if anybody's very eager to be on the steering committee itself. Looks like planning commission will have a role regardless, so whether I'm on it or not, I think I'll have some role to play. So Eric, you and Matt had talked last meeting from the notes, it seemed. Was there a strong will for you or Matt to be on it definitively?
I think that, yes, and I've expressed this. I think that the planning commission as a whole should be part of it. Kirsten, you're on council, so you're on it. Mm-hmm. You just happen to be on planning commission, so we could still have 2 planning commissioners, just you're exempt facto, right?
I'd even initially intended that I would not be on it, but because I will be the point of contact, we kind of talked it through, and they said I really need to be there, and if I'm there, then I count whether I want to or not. So yeah. I do count in both places.
Like I said, I think you know, a lot of effort has gone into getting us here. I think it's, you know, it's a disappointment for sure, and I will say that loudly. But even more so than me, you know, Matt Greiner needs to be on it, and he can be on it through Coletta as a business owner in town. But, you know, any way, shape, or form, I mean, he needs to be at the table for it and shouldn't be overlooked. You know, I run a business in town, but this town doesn't matter about my business. So it's moot. I mean, if that's the decision that it's 8 and that's the way that the math is going to be accounted, then I lose.
Well, Eric, the 8 isn't what matters. What matters is that by being on the planning commission, we can only have 2 people from planning commission on the steering committee, regardless of how big it is, because of quorum. That's state laws. That has nothing to do with the steering committee size.
So
It would require advertising and having all meetings be public if we have a quorum in existence during.
even for planning commission, I didn't know that applied to the planning commission.
Yeah, under the Sunshine Act.
Yeah, it is what it is. But like I said, I think that Greiner's role is super critical to it because he brings a, you know, longitudinal family, you know, resident, business owner, real estate developer. You know, he's got the chops and a resume that it seems odd that he wouldn't be a part of it. I mean, it seems like an oversight. And Lydia, you have the, you know, you have the background with Thrive. You know what I mean? So
I do, but there's others involved that can. It sounds to me like from planning commission, maybe Matt Greiner should be the person on the steering committee, and I can be part of the rest of the meetings.
I mean,
Be able to be part of it as a business owner separately because of the quorum issue. So there's only 2. Kirsten's 1. We get to pick one other person.
I know Matt's not here tonight to really say how interested he is, so perhaps this is something we follow up with him on, but I think it would be a real disservice to not have Lydia on it because we do have other people who will be on the steering committee that don't have the history with the project, but we want to involve because they're residents in the community and business owners in the community and newer council members. But for planning commission, I really think it would be unfortunate if I am the voice of the planning commission because I'm also representing council.
right.
And you know, Matt's only been on the planning commission for a month. He doesn't have
I was just gonna suggest something might be crazy. Jim, close your ears because this might be unethical. What if Matt took a sabbatical? You know what I mean? From whatever the Latin term is for that one. What if he took a sabbatical from the planning commission for the duration of the, you know, of this? You know what I mean?
I mean, I don't think there's anything unethical about that. I'm not sure if there's.
Well, we'd offer to hold his position is what I'm saying. I mean, is that?
Yeah, I don't think there's a way to take a sabbatical. He would have to step down and be reappointed, which I don't think would be an issue because we're not really overwhelmed with people applying for these
Right.
positions.
Check the line.
That is fundamentally the issue. We can't have more than 2 people be on the planning commission and on the steering committee at the same time.
Yep. Hold on. You don't see what I'm doing, but I'm telling you what. There you go.
The other name that was floated is as a representative of a business owner is of course Susan, who happens to be married to Matt. And that is
yeah,
that is
works.
not a conflict. So then I had also talked with the consultant about having planning commission working sessions. Those will be accommodated. We talked about potentially having a planning commission working session around the same time that they have the steering committee first meeting, which will probably be around August. I know after their kickoff, they were going to go back and refine their schedule and suggest dates. So I haven't seen that yet. But it sounded like August was likely. they're doing what they call, well, I'll get to their scope in a second, but they're doing their kind of first analysis stage over the summer, and then they'll come back with some initial findings and do a steering committee meeting. And then at that time, we talked about also having a planning commission working session.
Cool.
That could be done as a workshop with the whole planning commission, where it's at the same time as one of our planning commission meetings and is thus already advertised and open to the public. We don't really get swamped with people at these. And if some people do attend, then
Even better.
that would be okay.
Mhm.
There's also the possibility that we could structure that as an executive session. And that way we don't have to have it open to the public if we think there's a benefit to having just more of an open working session where we don't feel like we have to be recorded and people can speak a little more freely. So either of those are options and either of those can be accommodated.
I think it's great.
So that, just to recap, that was either part of the planning commission regular meeting or could be held separately, right?
Right. Right. So if we can circle back to some of these, if we want to pause on making a decision, but do we have a decision? I had suggested that Lydia be the person.
I motion to nominate Lydia Herring to the steering committee of the zoning project update.
I mean, we don't need a motion for that.
Oh, come on.
Make one.
And second it. Say something, Vince. Come on.
Is that it doesn't need a motion. And so I don't know if we want to make it that formal unless you really want it to. Are we comfortable with that, or would we prefer, and this is also up to you, Lydia, would you prefer to take some more time to talk it through with Matt?
I haven't changed my mind. I'm perfectly willing to be part of it. I'm passionate about this project. I don't want to take the place from somebody who really wants to be on it if there's no way to get, his thoughts captured. So I think the idea of having Susan, his business partner, be part of the steering
Right.
committee separately as one of the business owners is wonderful. If that can come to fruition, I'm comfortable being the planning commission second representative. If it's not possible, then I'm willing to have Matt be the person in my place. I'm a team worker here, team player. So how about I'm planning to be on it, contingent upon Susan's,
Okay.
Appointment on the steering committee too.
Okay. I should have added to this a specific item for Ingram's updates.
Did Griner say he wasn't coming?
He did not. No, I didn't hear from him today.
All right.
Do you have his number? I don't think I have his phone number.
I'm
I don't
texting.
think I do either.
Okay. Thanks, Eric.
So since this is a joint project, we should be talking about Crafton and Ingram together. Jim, do you know, have there been any discussions about the steering committee on Ingram's side?
Not that I'm aware of, Kirsten. But I will say that communication is not very strong
Mhm.
between the council and the planning commission, what's left of us. So I determined that I need to be very proactive and reach out to them to stay involved.
Do you assume that you would be on the steering committee?
I won't assume anything. Based on past communication, I don't assume anything, but common sense would indicate that the answer would be yes.
Right.
And I will make that request.
Okay. And again, Crafton hasn't assigned ours either, but we have had those early discussions about who will be on it, and a steering committee first meeting would likely be later this summer. So I'll certainly share once I get a refined schedule from the consultant.
Okay.
But Jim, you do have interest in being on it?
Yes.
Great.
So if we do a planning commission working session, would it be ideal to do that as a joint Crafton and Ingram planning commission working session? Or do you think that Ingram's planning commission will be more involved with Ingram on this specifically through the steering committee or in other ways? would there be interest in that planning commission working session being a joint session, or would Ingram prefer to do their thing and Crafton will do our thing?
Speaking for myself, I would prefer a joint session.
Okay. So
Yeah.
once I agree, and that makes a lot of sense.
We're trying to blur the lines here. You know what I mean? Like, just because somebody comes through town, oh, that's Crafton. Oh, that's it. No, we want them to feel that that's, this is a place they come to. So.
Well, sure, but I mean, also they are going to get their own product. They're going to have their zoning ordinance. We will have ours. It will be two separate ordinances. They will be billed separately, and it's worth asking if they would rather have their own meeting.
Yeah, no, that's totally, yeah. I see why you have to ask it, but but in me and my my narrow view of the world, it seems nonsensical, borderline comical. But I get it. I get it. There's always a reason. And Jim, regardless of whatever happens, it looks like if ours are working sessions that are open meetings, you can just join us.
Right.
You know what I mean? We'll just make sure you know about it, right? So
Sure.
one way or the other, we'll takes a village.
So is there a preference as to whether they are regularly planned planning commission meetings or whether they are specifically scheduled to align with whenever the steering committee meeting is, if it's not our usual time? Is there a preference as to whether it's a regular meeting that's open or a specially scheduled executive meeting?
I don't want to always jump in, but I really think that if we treat them as separate, like we've done with the workshops, to me, it makes a lot of sense, because, we do have other things, because that's just going to hog up our time. You know what I mean? To do other things. And I don't want to add a whole bunch of things to our agenda, but I do want us to press forward in, coming up with ideas, salient points to implement this park plan, doing things that we can do from the seat of the planning commission to make recommendations upward. But I mean, if we're kind of locking ourselves in as much as we want to, I would push, lobby. I would lobby. That's the word, right? To have them as separate meetings.
We're not locking anything in today, I think,
No,
but it's good to get the temperature. So we, talk about scheduling it in the way that you all are most interested in. I think if we want to do it at about the same time as the steering committee meeting, if we do them, say the same day or back to back, or, one day and the next day, most likely it would not happen to be the same day as our regularly scheduled meeting. Right. So if the preference from this group is to schedule a separate special meeting, then that's what I will aim for. I'll tell them that we would like to set up a meeting on the same day or next day as the steering committee meeting, whenever that's scheduled.
It might allow us more flexibility to meet either in person or virtually, depending on what needs to be discussed. Some things might lend themselves better to being in person.
Mm-hmm.
If we're looking at plans or something.
In person would be good.
So I think,
okay. Well,
I think the worst case scenario would be we have to schedule separate meetings, which have to be publicized. So maybe let's err on that, since they have to go out in print newspaper to advertise.
Well, and we wouldn't have to have it be an advertised session. This is something I need to check on, but because it would just be a working session to kind of kick off and review documents, we wouldn't be deciding on anything or making any motions. We could do it as an executive session.
Mm.
We could decide that we'd like to do it as an open working session anyways. We might have to pay extra for that, because then it would be classified as a public meeting, which is not in their scope. So we'd have to tread lightly and see if they're open to that.
Mm. So how does that differ, the executive session? How does that differ from the quorum issues with the steering committees?
We would just have to acknowledge in the next planning commission meeting that we had an executive session to review materials, but no decisions were made. And we would have to be careful in that meeting to not make any decisions.
And the steering committee, the way it's set up, the scope of the steering committee would be a decision-making body because so you can't have the quorum and call it an executive session. Is that right?
It's trickier because ultimately the council would be the ones formally adopting the ordinances, but the role of the steering committee is to advise, and they have a bit more of a direct role. It's kind of gray.
Mhm.
And in order for us to be, clearly in alignment with the laws, it's best and common practice to not have quorums in the steering committee.
Okay.
So then also, just to give everyone a recap of the way that the scope is structured, there will be what they call diagnostic phase, which started with their kickoff and site tour. So they're going to be, they did a site tour of the two boroughs, and they're going to be looking through our codes and looking for inconsistencies with state code, inconsistencies within the code, and just inconsistencies with best practice, and putting together what they call a diagnostic report. Once they have that draft diagnostic together, that is when they suggest having the first steering committee meeting, as well as that planning commission working session. So they'll go over their findings, their initial recommendations for which things they're noticing need to be adjusted or updated and why. And that will be, that'll be the focus of that first steering committee and the first planning commission working session. They've also put as part of their scope a visioning session, and we don't have a date for that yet either, but we did talk about doing that this summer. So again, as soon as I get an updated schedule, that'll be circulated to the Planning Commission for your awareness.
Cool.
Thank you.
And that visioning session would involve an open public meeting or public event. They're looking at the area. They're suggesting to look at the area around the two busways that correspond to commercial districts, downtown districts in both communities' comprehensive plans. And those would be open community meetings that would be advertised several weeks in advance and would be completely open to the public. I would hope that the
reason why they're not thinking of Woodlawn as a third.
Of Woodlawn.
Yeah.
I think it's for two reasons. One, because we don't have a commercial district established there. And two, because this was already a stretch for the scope. So I think they kind of added it as an initial piece, that visioning. I don't think I'm saying anything out of line to acknowledge that well, I mean, this was all on public record. We had the offer from two of the subs from our consulting group to do the visioning outside of this process.
Mm-hmm.
It was not part of the scope of the RFP that we put out, but as they were on that team, they did continue they added that offer to do basically free visioning sessions as part of the scope that they gave us. Does that make sense? They had made the offer to do that visioning at no cost before they even responded to this RFP.
Right, and you held them to it, right?
They had offered one site per community.
Right.
So we're talking about two visioning sessions, one at the Ingram busway and one at the Crafton busway corridor.
I think they were talking about one day of visioning, but with events held at each site and with examples and images that responded to each site.
Okay. So they'd happen in series. It's basically like a moving visioning workshop where you have people show up at the one and then move to the second site.
They didn't talk about how they would set that up yet.
Okay.
They had briefly mentioned that we could do the visioning as part of the kickoff in June. But we decided not to do that because of the very tight timeline and the fact that neither community had even started assembling a steering committee and the contracts weren't signed yet. It seemed like there were far too many things we still needed to finish before we could start advertising a community event. I think that even came up shortly after the last planning commission meeting. So there wasn't an opportunity to talk about it with planning commission at that time either. So we ended up deciding that the June 21st was just too soon to do a visioning, community visioning. So that's a recap of what we've heard from them at the kickoff. Are there any questions or discussion about the zoning project? You know, so far that was mostly just me giving a recap of what we got at the kickoff.
No, that's great. I just looked it up because I was curious and I'm that guy. So all of that Woodlawn, the park and ride, everything there, 100% of the park and ride is not Crafton. It's funny, like Google Maps, right? So I'm not authoritative, but the way they draw their little red line is most of it is not in Crafton at all. Like not even our street.
Border is on the other side of the street at the base of Woodlawn. The
Yes, right
houses are
here.
in Crafton, and then the rest of it goes back to City of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, you know, maybe a future iteration is we explore, you know, what the city of Pittsburgh would like to do with that, because I know that chunk is for sale. You know, somebody's gonna do something with it. Anyway, sorry to derail it. Griner's gonna join. He didn't
Great.
get the memo. Well, he didn't receive the memo.
Pretty sure I had his email on it.
Oh, you know, that was, yeah. Yes, I'm sure you sent it. You know, you sent, received, maybe not so much. He forgot.
All right, well, it's good that he's going to be jumping on. But in the meantime, since we did have this zoning project update, not a whole lot else has happened. I mean, it has been kind of a slow process between.
Dude, it's been like a millennia to get started.
Yeah,
Moving
I
up
mean,
speed.
we had our committee interviews, we made our committee decision. Crafton Borough made a decision, council voted. Ingram Borough made a decision, council voted. Their council meeting schedule was different than ours, so that was a few weeks later. Then the contract got put together and the contract was signed. It took a few weeks to get it through Crafton. It took a few more weeks to get it through Ingram. So here we are, about 2 weeks ago, we finally had, you know, a fully contracted consultant starting this project.
Liddy, you must feel
They
like
did.
a proud parent.
They did. They had a big team. They had their full team here, June 21st, walking around, taking pictures. So they got at least to do to kick off and get a sense of our communities and start doing their diagnostics and their analysis. Are there any questions from Ingram? I know it was, you guys didn't have a chance to have somebody at that kickoff meeting, which was unfortunate. I know Sam was going to attend and he had a conflict and he'd asked someone else to join and it didn't work out. But the intent as far as splitting the work is that there's going to be a lot of crossover between what's being developed for Crafton and what's being developed for Ingram. They're going to be very, very similar. And so in general, the work is going to be billed and split 50-50, but they have been asked to tag all of their hours spent, and anything that is specific to one community or the other, they're going to tag. And so the two communities will be billed separately based on what was done that is for that community at that month.
I don't have any questions, Kirsten, other than request, I was not, neither Aaron or I was made aware of that meeting.
Mhm.
So if meetings are going to take place, and until I tell you otherwise, would you please notify me so I'm aware of it?
I can. Honestly, I think
I'll
that
make
has
the
to come
request
through
to the
Sam.
Ingram Council. Pardon me?
Honestly, I think that has to come through Ingram Council, because I can't make decisions for them as to who they want to attend their meetings. It was shared with one person for each community, one point of contact, who then decided who they were inviting for their community. I think I'm happy to. I'm uncomfortable being the person who's deciding who's going to attend for Ingram.
No, you're absolutely correct. I'm sorry. You're right. I'll take it up with, I'll find out if they want me to represent the borough on the committee, then we'll go from there.
For what it's worth, though, you didn't miss much. It was, how are we going to bill? And then myself and Coletta, we did accompany them on the site tour until we were too hot to continue.
Okay.
And it was very, very hot that day.
Awesome.
Well, we can, if there are no other questions at this point on the zoning project, we can come back to that. If Matt wants to follow up once he's able to join, we can go on to the Parks Master Site Plan for now, if that sounds good.
Cool.
And there's not a whole lot to say there because I don't have any updates. This is Crafton specific, but we did submit our master site plan to DCNR, and we were told that they might sit on it for a few months as they go through their review. So the next step is that when they do review it, they will, give their feedback to the consultant, to EPD, that did our Parks Master Site Plan. And then the final version, if there are any changes requested by DCNR, or if there are no changes requested, then EPD will submit their final version to Crafton Council, and the council will need to approve it. So that hasn't happened yet, and it's still sitting with DCNR. I know that last month we had this item on the agenda as well, and we did not have a quorum, but there was a little unofficial discussion about the status of the Parks Master Plan. I wrote that, we can say this again when we get to the minutes, but I attended only briefly last month just to start the meeting as the host, but I was sick, so I didn't stay in the meeting. And that's why we did not have a quorum, with Lydia out and with myself out. Eric and Matt both just had some casual discussion. And I know you both talked a bit about the Parks Master Site Plan. So now that we are all together, Eric, do you want to recap any of that again?
Yeah, I can. And Lydia, where are we? This is the June, April, May. All right. So I put in, Lydia asked for me to expound a little bit on what I meant by the delta of the cost methodology. And I put in a little example. It's kind of hokey, but that's what I could think of. So let's say background is struggling getting on.
I don't see anyone in the waiting room yet.
He needs the passcode. Hold on. What is can someone read the number of this, me? It's a little green shield. I got it. 8, 5, 6, 2, 6, 8. Yeah,
Sorry, guys.
there he is.
Hey,
Hi,
Matt.
Matt.
I had a complete brain. I don't know why I can't see me right now, though. I don't know.
Looks like your camera's off.
Mhm.
I am. Why don't I know how to turn it on? Hold on, maybe this. I have no idea. Anyhow,
Kind of hover over the bottom. You should have an option to start video with your
at the
cursor.
bottom, there it goes.
Little toolbar. Yep.
There you go.
There he is.
There, okay.
Oh, good to see
Sorry,
you.
I am so sorry, guys. I really apologize. I've been working so hard. If I haven't even looked at my email today, or not, I would have seen that we had a meeting, and I lose track of days. So I'm
We're,
sorry.
We're gonna jump right into the lightning round. All right,
Go ahead.
we've got some questions to circle back to pepper you with in a second.
Okay.
Just about the steering committee and that sort of thing.
Yes.
But last month, just a recap, you and I had a public conversation. So the idea of the park plan update, I had put in here, you know, the report, there were some minor revisions and included the updated voting. First of all, I'll talk about that one first because it's less to talk about. Basically, just making sure that the votes were accounted for and placed into the plan from both the online voting and the in-person voting to make it a whole. So that was pretty straightforward, just, you know, something that the consultant didn't think of. Then the other was what I call Delta-based cost methodologies. Basically, to make apples to apples comparisons, you have to have not just fruit, you have to have the same fruit, right? So when you make when what was explained to me by the consultant was when you make these things happen, say you're going to build, and I like to pick on the dog park because I think it's a shame that we haven't been able to figure out how to pull this off in the past 10 years. But so the dog park has a trash can, right, Lydia? Somebody has to empty the trash can. So you have to pretend for the sake of the grant, so it's competitive with everybody else. What would it cost you to empty that trash can? Right? Well, you got to have two guys, you got to have a truck, you know what I mean? So there's that cost, but then there's the reality of, well, they're already driving through the park emptying the trash. So it really isn't going to cost them that because they're just going to grab the trash can and empty it. See what I mean? So there's that's a really rudimentary, like fundamentally basic, but I think it was like $3,000 when, you know, really it's, you know, almost included because there's a dumpster across the street from it. They will definitely be there twice a week emptying the trash can. So it's not technically $3,000. But those are the kinds of examples that I said, well, we really need to explain that because these costs do spiral upward in the plan, right? The budget in the plan is different than the budget in reality. And then there's a third way to look at it. So we have a budget in the plan for $65,000 when our, you know, our borough planner, you know, said that, you know, when we do these things in house, it doesn't cost us near that. You know what I mean? So what you're doing when you're putting this budget, yeah.
You know that what's in that plan is not authorizing that budget.
No.
Typically, you want the maximum included because that's what allows you to go after grants. Like you want, if it can be charged, you want it there, knowing that we might not have to actually pay that in the end. But that's why those costs are higher in the plan, because in what's in the plan is what allows you to go after funding.
If your audience is to go after funding, you're absolutely right. And I don't disagree. I 100% understand that. I 100% agree with you.
That's the whole point of the plan.
Well, unfortunately, that's something that you and I fundamentally disagree on. The point of that plan is to also provide a reflection to the community of the things that we're doing. If we're saying that we're going to put 13 million into our whatever numbers into our parks, that's not necessarily true. That's by design, it's an inflated number. And it's not misleadingly inflated. There's just a delta there that needs to be explained. For us to do most of these things, dog park, for example, would not cost us anywhere near $65,000 to do in-house. But if we were to get a grant and have somebody like, we didn't touch it, soup to nuts contractor did it all because we got to, you know, however it worked out, yes, it would be in the, you know, somewhere shy of $100,000 with all the bells and whistles that were put into the plan. Yes, totally agree. And that's what I had asked for. And I think they, you know, they got it. Just that's what we talked about. It's like there's a delta there that I think is worth recognizing when you go to the community, because the community is also a stakeholder in terms of they're receiving the plan. It's not just for, I know it's really just about grants, but it's also a community facing document where you have to explain the community that, you know, these numbers are put together for a reason. It's not misleading, but it's not necessarily a reflection of the reality to do these things if we did them ourselves. Does that make sense?
the full potential cost, which
Yes,
allows us to position ourselves, you know, submit for grants that would cover the full potential cost.
exactly, exactly.
So the
But-
plan, what, do I have it correct here that minor revisions to the report were made to make that distinction?
I was told they were.
Okay.
It was never sent, and I never got the updated link, so I'm just assuming they were.
Okay.
So I could go out to SharePoint and find one, but I didn't. I was
I
told
just wanted to
they
make
were.
sure I reflected the minutes.
Yeah.
I wasn't at the meeting, so I'm just
Yeah.
trying to make sure the writing's right.
I haven't looked at it either. I
Yeah.
was sick a lot there for a few weeks, so I didn't attend the last Parks Plan meeting either. Because we're all happening around the same time, but the email that they sent out also said a few comments were made and were incorporated.
That's what I'm going off. That was the affirmation confirmation I did. It's like, okay, good. You know, but like I said, I you know what I don't want is it get weaponized. What I don't want is to be used the wrong way in the community. What I don't want is somebody saying, oh God, you know, so they're gonna have to propose a park tax to get all this stuff done. No, this is like a wish list. You know, this is like a letter to Santa Claus, right? This is not necessarily, you know, I used to send a Sears and Roebuck catalog to Santa Claus, hoping I get just one thing out of it, you know? So, I mean, you gotta understand that, but not everyone does. And that's what I'm saying. I like
Daisy
to,
Red Rider.
that's right. I never got the damn thing. I shoot your eye out. Yeah, that's right. So anyway,
Yeah,
I
it's,
just-
you're basically highlighting the nuance. You asked them to highlight the nuance.
I think it's a really important one, because if you went through and you did that plan, okay, what would it cost us if we did this, like on our own? You know what I mean? Rally up the troops, go out, pass a bond, right? Whatever. But you know, I mean, what would that really cost? To do all of the things on that plan wouldn't be the same number as what the cost basis is in that plan.
To be clear though, and I mean, Eric, you talk at length about this. So I mean, it is important to understand on the Planning Commission how things work as plans, what they represent. I think you're right that it needs to be communicated clearly, but some of these are standards. Like what is in that plan, they're not giving us construction costs. That is never a part of a planning scope. They're not giving us construction costs. And that's something that we all need to understand. If we're on the Planning Commission and we're conveying things to the community, we need to understand that nothing we're ever going to see or touch are construction level costs.
Right.
And nothing that's ever put into a planning document is anything other than a ballpark that gives you that magnitude of scale in order to go after funding. It gives you a little bit of a basis to request funds and something to point to that says someone has estimated that this is a reasonable estimate, but they're never construction level. And we could always say, oh, well, we could do it this way, slightly different and get the price down. We could do that different material. We could do, you know.
No, I totally agree with you.
We just need to understand
not what I'm
nothing we
saying.
ever see is ever going to be like exact costs. And we need to understand that if we talk about anything that comes through the Planning Commission to the community, we need to understand that distinction between planning documents and construction documents. They're not the same.
Well, yeah, construction documents or bids are on a cost basis. But what I'm saying though is it is the methodology used to derive those figures is done intentionally, and it's by definition going to be higher than reality. And accounting for that delta is super important to me in terms of the community's understanding. The lady, the lady I see when I rake the leaves on the street, we might have a friendly conversation about this. And I know she goes and reads every word. It's crazy. But the point though is for someone who doesn't have that context to receive it in line as a little text box or however it's indicated, I think it's really critical to get people to pause and think about, oh, okay, this is like my funny little note there about emptying trash cans. It's true, right? It's not gonna cost you $3,000 empty trash.
These are public meetings and we want to make sure that we're being accurate. You said by definition those costs are inflated. That's not true. By definition, those costs are kind of middle of the line. They include things that are possible anticipated expenses at common current market rates, but they often end up being exceeded. If we were to put that out to bid, next week.
My definition, chairperson, of inflated differs from yours. So allow me to go on the record at this point in time and make it absolutely clear. My definition of inflated are they do not account, and that's what I put into my hokey little example. They do not account for the potential efficiencies of emptying the trash. That's all I was saying by inflated. They're not intentionally inflated to misrepresent, to mislead, or confuse anyone, or create anything other than transparent and open politics.
As long as we make that clear, because we're talking about a consultant's work and we don't want to be saying things that are not false.
Well, that's why I put it in a suggestion mode, and I leave you guys to work it out so that it's not offensive to anybody, but I'm not offending anybody. I think the consultant did wonderfully adequate work.
Well, hopefully DCNR agrees that they did adequate or above adequate work, and we get it approved by DCNR shortly, and it can go to council for final approval. But that is where we're at now. The plan is the whole project is essentially done. They have billed their last invoice, but we don't have it formally adopted until we get it back from the state.
So we also went on to have some other conversation, and meetings on a record, it's recorded, but the brainstorming document idea, I don't know if with everything going on right now, I don't know if that's the right tactic to take, but I think it's a good idea for 2022, 23 at this point, since we're in June, initiatives for various things that we could do as workshops or other initiatives.
So let's move on to that, because we do have our joint meeting here today, and Ingram hasn't heard about this, and we have Vince, who's our new planning commissioner for Crafton, so this is also new to him. I have on item F here, upcoming initiatives. Crafton, and this is specifically a Crafton document, but with our joint meeting here, it's good for Ingram to just hear what else we're thinking about, and we'd love to hear what else Ingram might be thinking about. We have started this Google document that all of the Crafton planning commissioners have access to. Vince, I added you to that. So hopefully you got that notification. And what it is just this planning commission has been focused over the past year or so on some other initiatives. One of them was this zoning project, getting that to go through and get off the ground. But we started this Google document to think about what our upcoming initiatives might be. We have in the past hosted several different workshops, public workshops on various topics of concern to the community. We haven't had one of those in a little while, so we are starting to think about whether there's another workshop that we should host and what might the topic be. We also had talked a little bit about the idea of doing a little bit of research and developing recommendations for what ordinances might be developed for electric vehicles. This is something that came out of a discussion held in council that would be good for the planning commission to think about, to take the charge on. But is also something that a lot of municipalities around the region are starting to look into. People do have electric vehicles. There are not currently policies in place that monitor how they're allowed to charge those. Some people in other municipalities are charging them by parking them on the street and running the cords across the sidewalk, which is a hazard for people using the sidewalk. So a lot of municipalities are starting to think, do we need an ordinance for this? So that's one of the ideas for an initiative that this planning commission may take on. Something that came up a lot last year was brick streets preservation. We haven't circled back to this one yet. I will volunteer to take the lead on at least getting the example from Mount Lebanon. But the discussion last year was that Mount Lebanon, it was doing a brick streets ordinance, and they told us they would share it with us once they had it completed. So we can reach back out to them and see what they did and see if that's something we would like to look into for ourselves. And then the fourth one listed on there is the dark sky ordinance. That is something that city of Pittsburgh passed last year. And there has been discussion on Facebook from residents that they're interested in something like that here. So I'm just going to stop talking after those four, but those are some of the ideas that have come up and that are currently in that shared document. And then it kind of gets thrown back to the full planning commission to talk about whether we have ideas for these, whether there's discussion we want to have around any of them. And Jim, if you have thoughts or ideas to share that Ingram has been thinking about, this is kind of just open conversation, some of the next initiatives that we are interested in looking into.
Unfortunately, Kirsten, I wish I did. We lost a lot of momentum as a planning commission when Greg left. And we have not really Aaron and I have not had any meetings. We did have some discussions about initiatives about a year ago. And it didn't go anywhere. But I appreciate hearing about yours.
So I think as initial steps, it'd be nice for everyone to go into that document, share your thoughts as you think of them. And if there's anything you'd like to particularly take on, go ahead and speak up now, or in the document, put your name next to it. I will gather and share with us all the dark sky ordinance that the city of Pittsburgh did. So we have that as a starting point to look at, as well as the brick streets ordinance that Mount Lebanon did. So I will get a hold of both of those as examples to share with us. And then on the electric vehicle charging practices, I did attend a Connect meeting, Connect, the Congress of Neighboring Communities. I attended one of their meetings, virtual seminars they had on Monday. And one of the things they talked about were setting up some future workshops and seminars on specific topics of interest. And I listed that one as one that we were interested in. And a few other municipalities spoke up and said that they would be interested in the same. So nothing's happened on that yet since Monday, but it sounds like that it's very likely that we'll have some kind of workshop or seminar that's set up that we can attend. Connect's meetings are not usually closed to members. They encourage council members to attend, but they're not closed, and really anybody can attend them. So any of you could attend those too if you would like.
Just for the minutes, I'm sorry, I just need a little clarification. So the Connect workshop was not specifically on vehicle charging, but they asked participants to weigh in on future topics. And yes, you suggested vehicle charging, and some other people from other municipalities also agreed.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, it was kind of a status update from Connect on what they had been working on. But one of the questions they put out was they've been thinking about hosting a series of different workshops on topics of interest. And I commented that topic would be of interest to us.
Okay.
Kirsten, in that, if they do have one of those meetings that's pertaining to this vehicle charging stations and whatnot, I would love you to make sure that if you think of it, to send me a reminder.
Sure.
Maybe I could join with you, because something that would just jump into my head, and maybe I can do some research on it. But I would have to think that somewhere in the Port Authority's wisdom of going on right now, they may be thinking about putting some of these charging stations within their park and ride type of thing. So maybe there's a way to, I don't want to say necessarily get it done for free, but where we might be able to put charging stations down behind the Borough building and the park and ride area down there, to where the community members could use it as well. I mean, I know it's not right there by your house, but it might be a start to kind of get that ball rolling.
Yeah, no, that's a really good idea. There is also a program that's run by Duquesne Light, where they will install for free charging stations. And Crafton had looked into that, and initial Phil is the one who looked into that on behalf of Crafton, and the numbers he got back were that they would, and don't quote me on this, I don't know if I get the details right, but they were going to put it in for free, but then we would have to maintain it.
Mhm.
Regardless of what the specific details were, it was going to
Yeah.
cost us in the end. So that was as far as we've gotten so far. But
But it-
there are basically two things that I was thinking would be relevant to look into with electric vehicles. One is partnerships or funding opportunities like that to get it done
Mhm.
in a shared space. The other would be an ordinance or a policy to address the fact that some people are charging their vehicles with the core, not allow that because
Right.
not a thing that existed last time our ordinances were done, but we may want to consider ordinances that regulate how you can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that popped in my head when you were talking about, you brought this to light, I don't know, meeting before last, I never thought about it, but maybe they have to, whenever you have something at a fair at a park or whatever, they have those, rubberized type
Those-
things that they put down, for people to, so that people, I don't know. But yeah, there's definitely
yeah, I
has
mean,
to be. You
Maybe
can't
we
stop
can, like,
someone from charging their car, but how do we figure out how,
maybe we can require mats like that. I haven't looked into it at all myself. I just know, I mean, those are things that maybe people have done that. Maybe we can
Mhm.
require it.
That
Maybe
would
there are
require a
reasons they're
flat
not good.
street. Doesn't work for ours.
Nah, well, yeah, if you're having to go from one side of the street to the other, if you have a no parking situation on one side and you live on the other side, yeah, I'm with you there.
I mean, that's exactly the thing, right? If we don't
Yeah.
have any law against it, eventually it's going to happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think I told the story where my son has to plug his truck in. He's got a diesel truck. He has to plug it in the wintertime and, he has to stretch the cord across the sidewalk. I mean, at least it's, on the same side of the street, but it's still, we try to always figure out a way to make sure it's not dangerous, for, pedestrian walking down the street. So. Okay. Interesting thoughts.
Yeah, well, and Vince, I mean, this is all applicable to you too. Right now, this is just kind of a brainstorm document of things that we would like to
Yeah.
research and look into, but I mean, we can start doing that anytime. So anytime someone wants to take one of those on and start doing
Oh,
some.
I
research about
made
it,
some
yeah.
notes. I'll mess around a little bit, and do
Great.
some, talk to Port Authority and Duquesne Light and kind of find out where that was and what kind of maintenance is, and I'll talk to Phil too.
Mhm.
Find out what kind of maintenance is. If it's basic maintenance and it's something our road crew can do, and it's not like it's, a major, maintenance issue, then, then what's, and then maybe the company that actually builds it, maybe they have some kind of warranty program like you have for your water lines or your, there's got to be something out there that keeps it relatively low cost. So anyhow, I'll start messing around a little bit with it.
I love it. Matt's taking on that one. Great. And Vince, if you have other ideas too, I mean, that document is live. So if you have other things that you think of that you'd like to look into, I mean, this is,
I put it, I put it in
Sounds
the
good. Thank you.
working notes of this document. Does everyone have access to that document?
I know Kristen sent me the access.
Okay.
everyone in Crafton should, it is a Crafton Planning Commission document. So it's not in the shared Ingram folder, but it is shared with all the Crafton commissioners.
Oh, good.
Cool.
And my feeling on dark sky ordinance. Around midnight, all the lights, all the street lights, everything else should go off or go into a dim mode.
It would certainly make some people very happy.
So we can see some stars around here.
Mhm.
Anyhow,
It got a lot of news when Pittsburgh passed theirs last year. It was highly praised. I mean, not just in the region, but it got like national news.
well, you're all over that, so get on it. You said that's the one you wanted to take on.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would love a dark sky ordinance. I definitely do support that, but I'm, small steps. Very first, I will commit to getting a hold of theirs.
Okay.
And to getting a hold of the Mount Lebanon Brick
Yep.
Street one, and we can take it from there.
Yep.
So next item is to go through the minutes, but we didn't have you at the beginning, Matt. So if we want to circle back a bit to the zoning update.
Yep.
We talked a little bit about how, it has taken us a bit of time to get the whole process through 2 different municipal councils and systems and such. So
Mhm.
we, Crafton voted on this consultant. And then Ingram voted on this consultant, and then Crafton signed the contract, and then Ingram signed the contract, and the whole thing took about 2 months. So we have a signed contract as of about 2 weeks ago.
Mhm.
And our consultant team came out on June 21st and did a kickoff meeting and a site tour. That kickoff meeting, they told me it's generally a very small group, just point of contact for each client. So it was myself and they had contacted Sam Nucci for Ingram. I did go ahead and invite a couple people on our side. I mean, Doug was invited, I invited Coletta. Doug wasn't able to come in the end, but Coletta and I did attend the kickoff meeting. So we talked mostly about kind of billing, project management, who the contact should be, how they should share information, that kind of thing. We haven't fully appointed our steering committee yet, and neither has Ingram. But they are talking about doing kind of an analysis phase over the next couple months. They did their site tour. They'll look over our code. They'll look at what they think is inconsistent or out of date, or not in alignment with current best practices. They'll put together a bit of a diagnostic report, and we'll schedule the steering committee meeting later in the summer. Sounded like maybe August was likely, but they are supposed to be putting together a refined schedule to share soon that'll identify when they want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have a steering committee meeting later in the summer that will be at that point going through all of their initial findings and their diagnostic report out. We'll also have a planning commission working session at that time. We're going to do that potentially as a separate meeting, not a regularly scheduled planning commission meeting, so that we can still cover our regular conversations. But we are only going to have 2 planning commissioners on the steering committee, and I will count as one of those. And the reason we can't have more on the steering committee is because of the sunshine laws. We can't have a quorum and still have a steering committee and maintain transparency.
Right.
So we had discussed who from the planning commission would be a good person to have on that steering committee as well. The makeup for Crafton would be several council members, 2 planning commissioners, one of whom is myself, and I count as council as well, someone from the zoning hearing board, several local business owners, and that will make our 8 members. I had suggested, and there was some debate on this earlier today, which is why we really wanted to hear from you now that you're able to join. I had initially suggested that the other representative for the planning commission be Lydia. I know there's a lot of interest from many of you, but Lydia has really a long history with this, and I think would be a good representative. That being said, it was put up for conversation. Lydia has interest, but is also not set on it. Eric thought that you would have interest. We wanted to make sure that we were able to discuss it as a group.
Well, here's my thought. Seeing that I check off a couple of those boxes as far as planning commission / business owner, but with the sunshine laws, if I joined as a business member, can't do that.
No, you can't pick and choose.
I voluntarily threw you off the committee, Matt. I said, what if you take a sabbatical?
Could do that. Could do that.
Not the committee, but the commission.
Or whatever.
Planning
the
commission,
plan.
yeah.
Yes. Well, again, I was very emphatic about this whole thing when you guys were talking about this, about who was be part of the steering committee and the whatnot. I know all of you, and now, and some I know better than others. I mean, obviously, other than the political side of it, I have more experience than all of you guys when it comes to creating business and development within communities and so forth and so on. So obviously, I think I'm a good choice, but I'm not going to kick and scream and fight or whatever. So whatever it is you guys want to do, I'm fine with, and you'll have my support one way or the other. But I just think I would be a valuable asset to the whole thing. But that's me tooting my own horn. But whatever you guys want to do, doesn't matter. I'm an easygoing person, so.
All right.
Yeah,
Whatever you,
Matt, I
whatever
think-
you think
I think you and I,
is the
you and I
benefit.
are-
I'm sorry, go ahead, Lydia.
we're just having similar reactions to it. I think we're both team players. The other idea that came up about was, since your wife's a part business owner, just whether she would be interested in serving on the steering committee, and
I would
she
think.
probably
one-
doesn't have the construction experience that you bring
but
to it.
she's only been
She's
together
probably-
29 years. So a lot of the things.
Right, she'd kind of represent your
Yeah.
opinion, maybe.
Yeah.
You guys
I mean,
are aligned.
that's another thought process to it too. You know,
Matt, I was a little perturbed prior to learning about the sunshine laws about not being included.
Oh, sure.
But I totally get it. And I think that of the totem pole, I'm low on it. I run a business in Crafton, but it has nothing to do with Crafton, zero.
right. Yeah.
So the bottom line though is I feel pretty. I mean, I feel Kirsten's gone out of her way to make whole on involving the planning commission.
Mhm.
And here's my pitch to you.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea because what she's proposing, and listen, whatever happens, happens. Kirsten, you've got a good handle on things, but you don't have control of everything, right?
Right.
But whatever happens, happens. But I think the idea of having these working sessions alongside, right?
Right.
Again, alongside what happens.
We're getting all the information, firsthand from.
That's right. That's
From the
right.
chief
And we
before, so.
can ideate, we can recommend,
Yeah.
we can do what we do.
Yeah.
You can have your partner in I almost said partner in crime, but this is a recorded session. So your partner in affairs of life represented potentially on it. I feel like that's a really,
I like it.
I lobby you for that as a solution.
I like it.
Because I think it
And
makes,
like I said, I'm not going to kick and scream one way or the other, especially because we're going to be, Chris is going to be giving the information back to us right away. And, we're going to be, like you said, we're going to be able to, she's going to, even though it's 8 people, she's going to have a lot of, her and Lydia will have a lot of say-so, being from their position from the planning commission. So, we can put in our thought processes and what have you. And yeah, I think, cause Sue was talking about, taking one of the vacancies on the planning commission if everything had gone. So I think she'd probably love to do it, because she does have a lot of good thoughts, along with mine, my thoughts, her thoughts, our thoughts been here, she's been here most of her adult life, she's lived here since she was 22 years old. So yeah, I like it.
It is a bit tricky because, I mean, Eric was at first not thrilled about the 8 members number, but that's not what's restricting us. What's restricting us is the sunshine laws. And we have a lot of the same people who are, on multiple different things. And so,
Yeah.
if we wear multiple hats, then we still count in all of those different categories. We can't pick and choose.
Yeah. No, I'm fine with that. And I'll talk,
And he's in
after
that seat too. Vince had expressed interest, and as council member and as planning commissioner, we did talk a bit about it. And if we both were on it, then that would mean that there would be, too much double serving.
Yeah.
We'd be giving up, 2 planning commission seats to people who are also council seats. And it is just a bit tricky that we have so many people who are interested in doing, but count in multiple places, because we have people who are involved on multiple fronts.
Yeah. I'll talk to Sue after the meeting, and I think it'll be something she would probably be interested in.
Okay.
What's
we'll
the
go
process,
forward with-
Kirsten, if she wants to pursue that?
Well, there's not a formal process, and this isn't something that we have to motion on or decide on. Steering committee members are just appointed, but I'm going to appoint who we think is best. So I think we have a strategy for that. Matt, if you want to just email me, or I don't know if you have my number. If you want to text me, you certainly can email me. Just let me know if she's interested.
Yeah.
Then that's what I'll do.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, and then Ingram is going to need to talk about their steering committee, but I'll reach out to I can reach out again to Sam and I'll copy you on that, Jim, just give you guys an update on our approach and see, prompt Ingram to think about who they're going to appoint to their steering committee.
Thank you, Kirsten.
Also, because it's joint, I just have one more question. Because what if I came in from a different from the other community, because I have business workings in the other community as well?
I would have to check that with our solicitor.
I mean, again, that would be, Jim's, that would be his choice, but I do have I have several working projects in Ingram. So
I'm not a lawyer, so I would have to check with the solicitor on that, because I certainly don't know, but my gut reaction is I don't think that would pass. I don't think it.
I don't know. When Jim popped on there, I just all of a sudden thought about that.
I myself had thought that I would not be on the steering committee because I am the point of contact, and that's what Doug wanted. He doesn't have the capacity or the background to be able to really stay on top of this. So he suggested, he asked that it be me, and I'm happy to be the point of contact. But then I thought I don't need to be on the steering committee, but then they need me to be at all the steering committee meetings.
Right.
And just for continuity of communication and to make sure we're
Right.
communicating well. And they said I can't be there and not count.
Yeah.
It's a legal thing. So however I want to name myself doesn't matter. And I don't think how you name yourself for a different community would make a difference. But if you would like to explore it, I can ask the solicitor if we can pull that off.
I don't know. I mean, Jim may have plenty of volunteers on their side of it. So I've just thrown it out there as another idea, just in case.
I think he's going to say no, but I will check with him anyways.
I mean, obviously we want to get,
count. You count regardless.
Yeah. So anyhow, just throwing it out there. Good.
I'll check though. I'll ask him.
Cool.
I did not think to put, I feel bad about this. I'm sorry, Jim. I didn't think to put Ingram updates on the agenda officially. We did talk about the joint project. Are there any other Ingram updates that you would like to share?
Oh, gee, no, I mean, not really. We have replaced Greg on council.
Mhm.
So they have a new person there. I don't really know that I have any other updates. Our grant program, our grant for improving the streets is moving along. I heard about that at one of the meetings. And there's on July 5th, we're going to have a presentation by our contractor. It's a Michael Baker company. And I assume that will be open to the public and advertised open to the public. So those are just two things I found out at the recent council meetings.
Okay. One other minor update here that I wanted to share with you all. This has been shared with Crafton Council as well. And Jim, I'll send you the link so that I'll send it to you and Sam when I follow up on zoning. It's good to know about. The federal government has come out with a massive new grant program. It's called Safe Streets for All, SS for A. And they've put billions of dollars into it. It is for communities like ours who would like to do street improvements, transportation improvements, anything that's focused on street safety, street upgrades, sidewalks, multimodal paths, trails, bikes, street beautification, trees. I mean, any number of things. If it contributes to street safety or complete streets or anything like that, there's this very large new federal grant program that was just announced about a month ago. So really good for our communities to know about. It looks like the first funding cycle is due in September. So Crafton has shared that with our engineers. They'll be looking into it, and Ingram might be interested in that too. And this whole planning commission should know about that as we think about, ideas we might like to explore or recommend to council that they look into. should know that there's this funding opportunity. In fact, I'll send the link out to everyone on Planning Commission.
Put it in the notes doc too.
It's called Safe Streets for All. And it's a federal grant program.
Kirsten, there was an article either in today's paper or yesterday's paper announcing a multi-billion-dollar program. Is that the same one?
Might be. I don't know what article you saw. This one came out about a month ago, but
This was in the Post-Gazette just in the
Okay,
last couple of days.
they still are. It was announced by the federal government, so it's still in the news as it kind of news of it trickles out. So it might have been the same one that you read about.
I imagine it would be because it was like $3 to $4 billion, and it was for improvements. It reminded me just exactly like type of funding we've been going after.
Mm-hmm. It was in the Post-Gazette.
Yes. In the last couple, either today or yesterday.
And it was for street improvements particularly.
That's my recollection. I can't, remember it exactly. But yeah, I mean, it was a large article. It was covered, went from one page to another. I don't know if it was front page, probably not.
Okay, well, I don't have access to the Post-Gazette, so I can't check if it's the same one, but
Well, I can send you. I can send it to you.
here for the, well,
If
I
I
don't know.
find it, I'll send it to you.
Okay. I'm gonna
Jim,
put,
your recollection was that it was this program, or I kind of missed for the notes. I'm trying to capture what the news story was covering.
I put the link.
I'd have to look at it again. I can send it to both of you. Lydia, I can send it to you also.
Sure, that's fine. I'll update the notes.
I'll find it and send it to you.
Yeah,
Great,
that would be
thanks.
great. And I put the link to the SS4A grant into the chat.
I just found it. It's the Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP. It's more highway oriented, infrastructure, highway, bridges, that sort of thing.
TIPS
day
can
was
be
that in?
multimodal. That's not a federal program. That's just a planning type.
Yeah, that's it, Eric. What day was that in?
Yesterday.
Okay,
I'll put
that's
the
it.
link. Yeah, I'll put the link in the chat in this minute.
Okay. So
Thanks,
maybe
Okay.
it's different.
Yeah, it's different.
Okay.
Okay.
But I would imagine that its funding sources probably tapping into SS4A, right?
It's probably not yet because the SS4A was just created last month, and the first grant cycle is the first applications will be accepted in September. So this is the TIP. That's basically a plan for spending. The Southwestern Pennsylvania Commission identifies what projects they're going to invest in each year. So that's essentially their investment program. What are they going to invest in? And they probably already have funding sources for all of those. But sorry, just a little bit of technical speak there. They'll probably also want to go after SS4A, but nobody has it yet because they have not yet opened their application cycle for their first year. Anyways, though, good to know about. There's lots of funding that our communities might be able to go after. Are we ready to go on to the review of the April and May minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
I didn't stop.
do
sharing.
have. Oh, you got really big on my screen.
You had, what did you want to say?
Oh, when with the thought processes, topics for discussion, so forth, so on. I was thinking about another one, and I can take the lead on it if you guys like the idea at all, or I don't know if we have to actually vote on it or anything like that. But we have an abundance, because I've done some research on this, and we have an abundance of properties in Crafton that were people who purchased them as early as like 1914. that are just sitting abandoned.
Mhm.
And some of them have taxes paid on them, some of them don't, so forth and so on. I would like to see about working with Jordan and identifying properties that haven't, whether they be, just raw ground, or whatever, with, with taxes that haven't been paid, saying, within, nobody's done anything within the last 5 years. Some of them go back as far as 30, 40 years, and they're just sitting there.
Yep.
And how, identifying them, and then how to go about, craft and be able to create, via council, a way to acquire these properties to then possibly sell them to developers or to, local business owners, whatever, to try to continue to grow try to grow our community, because there's a lot of property out there. It's crazy. There's on Baldwick alone, there's probably 40, somewhere between 24 and 40 lots that are there. All right. Right after, how the borough took down that one building, that one house. After that, there's probably in that whole section up there, there's at least 25 lots that have been there since people have owned them since 1914, and those people are dead.
Mhm.
And they're just sitting there.
That's a good idea. And I'm pretty sure that council has already established some kind of program for that. It's not one that I'm involved with,
I
but
don't think so.
I think
Well,
Coletta has been looking into
Coletta
something
has.
like
I
that.
know she's been, well,
She has the dead people properties, or she has a funny name. If I
Right.
misquoted her as dead people properties. I
But
tell you what, Matt,
But what I was trying to say though, is I think that's a great thing that we could take on.
right. I don't think they
It's
have the
probably-
time. I think they've kind of scratched the surface of it, but they really haven't had somebody to say, okay, go, contact Jordan, let's, get the ball rolling with.
Well, this is the thing though. I think it would probably be best to start it in conversation with Coletta, because we as a planning commission would not be able to just request information from Jordan without some
Right.
authorization.
But you guys would be
but-
okay with that.
But I think we can get it. In fact, we have before.
Oh, I don't think
We
there's a
had an
problem.
initiative- We had an
I don't think-
initiative a few years ago where we got information from Jordan Tax. Anyway, since Coletta already has that started,
Yep.
I'll follow up with her and ask that be, shared with the planning commission, and then we can see what steps we need to take to take that on.
Right.
And, whether she already has information from Jordan, or we can request it be shared with the planning commission. I know the only consideration a few years ago is we had to make sure that it was, had certain types of information redacted, because we're not looking to gather people's personal information.
Right.
We were looking at certain categories that were public record.
Exactly.
I
I think they would appreciate our help if somebody wanted to.
I'm sure they would.
I think some of that could fall outside of the planning commission too, Matt, and I'd be happy to talk with anybody interested in it. I happen to live next to one of those.
Yeah.
And I talk to Season, frequently. Now we have hired somebody who's, catching up and doesn't know what Season does, but is catching up. But the idea is, well, I'll just say I've got pretty good experience with this when I say that the establishment of a community development corporation in Crafton,
Mhm.
probably what's going to be required to get the kind of activity and the traction moving
Mhm.
that we would want to see.
Yeah.
And to date, we really haven't seen one. So,
Right.
I think that's a worthy conversation. Love to talk to anybody, yourself included, about some ideas that I have about getting that moving to, get the planning commission's help in making some recommendations to make the process of a CDC, more attainable. Because I don't want to run one, but I know we need one.
They should put them
It would
upstairs.
be a huge help if we
That
did.
might be
one.
off there.
Yeah.
Man.
I just
It would be
drives
a
me
lot
nuts.
to create
Drives me
it,
nuts.
but
For
we
15
would be
years.
we'd be so much better positioned for
Yes.
other economic development and support mechanisms and grants if we had
And
an entity like that. Yes.
holy crap, we're doing a zoning project right now, right? So like there's so much affinity, like blah, 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 blah. Anyway. All right. We've been on this for too long. I've talked too much. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, we don't need to make motions to put ideas down in a brainstorm document, and you don't need to make motions to have ideas or research. So absolutely go for it, and have a follow-up conversation with Coletta to see if we
I'm
can
going to.
what's
I will.
already started. If we go back to our meeting minutes, and I see we already lost Vince, meeting minutes for April. Did everyone have a chance to review these?
Yes.
Yes.
I
Oh, shit.
will-
What the hell did I just do?
You're good. Nothing.
But I can't see you guys anymore.
Well, we can see you.
Yeah, you're still there.
Wow.
Motion to approve the April minutes.
Second.
Yeah, I agree.
Favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Aye.
And then for the May minutes, we don't technically need minutes since it was not a quorum meeting, but there was
Oh, there we
discussion. The meeting minutes are there, so I think it is great to go ahead and post them. The only change I would like to make, it looks like it was already made, left after first few minutes.
Makes sense.
I would perhaps suggest that we simply add after that, no quorum, so that it's very clear.
Sure.
We'll just add that now.
We add that I motion to approve.
Um,
I want to, once we're done, I want to tease something from that Lydia's put into minutes for tonight, but it'll be quick, I promise.
okay. So we have a motion to
I
approve.
second the May.
Aye.
Favor?
Bye.
All right.
Did
Minute-
Eric, did you motion to approve April?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So I put into the May and I put it onto the brainstorm note stock. So when I first moved here, there was this old dude with a dog. I got to know him a little bit because I had a dog, right? And he was an old dude, and he was from like Korea, World War II, like nicest guy in the world, man. Nicest guy. He loved my dog. I thought he was the coolest dude in the world. And they named like one of the shelters down in the park after him. He's the one that turned me on. He's my Crafton mentor in terms of how to walk Crafton. He's the one that turned me on to the loop that's the paper street behind Sakai's Dentistry, down all the way Bell's Run, all that sort of stuff. I found all the Chartiers Conservancy, all this sort of thing. I've stumbled upon that, right? My neighbor moved here 3 years ago, young kids, nice guy. His wife, she's a walker. They have no idea that the creek path even exists, right? They walk around Crafton a little bit. They enjoy it, but when they go for a walk, they go to the Montour Creek, the Montour Trail. They had no idea that those sorts of resources even exist here. And so I just think that, it would cost us nothing, and something the Planning Commission can really affect and have a direct impact on is some of the connectivity, right? So if you think about the trolley trail coming out of Pittsburgh, that's to be done, that's already exists, it's being improved on our end, even better, coming down in front of the school, all the cool stuff that's happening in front of the school, etc. Paper Street down at Sakai's, I'm talking about at Blackstreet Bridge, all the way
Get out of
down.
my neighborhood, Eric.
Yeah, get out of my neighborhood, man. All the way down around. It could come up through Ingram. You know what I mean? But like formally, like naming these as, Colonel Bogish. What was his name? Nice guy in the world. I can't think of his name. Bogish, something like that. Colonel Bogish Trail, or something like.
Way.
Yeah, Cower Way. Yeah, you get it. But you know what I mean? Like formalizing a little bit of this stuff as to, a walkable community, connecting these spaces. And yeah, over time they can be improved. Right now the damn Japanese knotweed is killing the pathway, but like there's got to be something that we can do that's low cost, some way to make these things more accessible to the people who live here than
So
people that happen to.
there are a couple of things we can do, and a few of these have already come up. So I just want to mention them. A lot of these were discussed in the parks plan, right?
Yeah.
So now as soon as that's adopted, we will have a plan that formally identifies them. And we got that paper street added to that
Yep.
parks plan. So it's on the map, and then we can
Yep.
put that map on our borough website as well. The cheapest way to bring attention to those would also be to simply like put information up with little map locators and like names on the website. The more official way, and I want to say this because Phil's been talking about it lately, and I think it would be a good thing to do, and possibly something that we could do along with our zoning. It's not technically in the scope, but could be a very minor addition. There is a product called an official map that we don't have, but that's like the legal version of what you're asking for. We can put a name on it and we can just call it that
Didn't know
unofficially,
that.
but an official map is the terminology that would put it into, legal recognition. And it's often done alongside with zoning. So it's something we could look at adding. And it would basically be a map that identifies which properties are officially designated as public space, officially designated as borough, officially designated as trail or as park, which means that it's much harder for anybody to undo that. It's not impossible, but it kind of is like saying officially, map, we're
totally.
reserving this for trail, and then we can give it an official name.
Well, like I said, I'm all in. I'll help any way I can with any of that. It's such a amazing resource. I call it the Father's Day 5K. I do it every year. It's about 8.5 miles all in, and it's all within Crafton. Little tiny
So Eric,
sliver.
I'm going to give you this task. We'll put this on our agenda for next month and we can formally vote on it, make a
Okay.
motion on it rather, make a motion to give to council. If you want to put together a little bit of like information about what an official map is and a justification for why it would be good for Crafton,
Perfect.
then we can motion on it and we can deliver that to council.
Perfect. Because it's a generic word, if you can point me to any sort of like, Wikipedia level information to accept what an official map is, because I'd love to learn the codification of it a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, let me put this in. It isn't a generic term, but it's also, very, very formally recognized. And so it is actually easier to find than you might think,
We can
Phil's calling it a special map,
website on it.
which is not a thing. Official map.
Yeah, I'm on the exact same website as you are right now, so that's good. Okay,
See, it's
cool.
not as hard to
This-
find as you might think.
Project assigned. Yes, all right. Move on.
And I mean, since it wasn't, that would probably be a better way to do it, is if you just prepare a little bit and we can motion on it next time, and that way it can be formally on the agenda. And we
Done.
can make a formal,
You're gonna bring those back?
Done. Got 1,000 ideas. Love it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I like it. All right, so are we ready we have no citizens on the line? Oh, hold on, we were still on our meeting minutes. We did vote for those, right? We did.
Yep,
Yeah.
we did.
All right, no citizens on the line. Are we ready to adjourn?
Yes.
It is 8:10. We are adjourning.
I'll motion to adjourn at 8:10.
Second.
All right, thank you.
Good
all
night,
for
everybody.
joining.
Goodbye.
Jim, good to see you.
Sorry I was late.
Y'all.
Good to have you though. I'm glad you joined.
It was my buddy Eric. He
Tuesday.
hammered my phone for me to remind me.
Get back to me about when you talk to your wife.
I will. I promise. Bye.
Have a good evening.
You too.